everybody in the Empowered Living community. My name is Holly Martinelli, and I'm with Regina Bryan here on Real Life with Holly and Regina.
Hey there, Holly.
Hey there. How are you doing, Regina?
Doing great today. How are you? It's been a fabulous day so far.
Yeah. Agreed. There's lots going on in the community, lots going on in the business, lots going on in family life, but it's good. It's all good.
I feel the same way. Lots of great stuff happening. I am loving getting together with you on Real Life. And so today's going to be another wonderful show.
Yeah, agreed. So today what we have planned is we're going to share some significant, each of us, a significant personal growth experience that we've had, just to share real life with you, just to share, this is stuff that we've gone through and we're still going through, and we're still, we're in it with you. We haven't reached this level where it's like, okay, we don't have to grow anymore. We're very much in it every day. So Regina, do you want to just start us off and share? I would love to. I haven't even heard yet. You haven't told me yet what you're going to be sharing. So I'm so excited to hear what your story is about.
So much of my growth has happened exponentially in the last couple of years. But when I thought about what I wanted to share on tonight's show and share with you and the audience, I went back a little bit. I went back to the day before Thanksgiving, 2017. So that was the day when I decided I'm going to go and meet with my Keller Williams team leader, Deb, and I was going to leave the Market Center because it was past time. I have known for years at that point that real estate was not the long-term career for me. And honestly, Holly, I stayed there because it was comfortable. I had a lot of friends in that office. I was very comfortable there. And I knew that if I was really going to give coaching and speaking a great chance, that I was going to have to just cut the KW apron strings. And so I remember going to see Deb that day, walking into her office. And before I could tell her anything, she said to me, "I'm so glad to see you. Brian and I were talking about you yesterday." And Brian is the owner of our Market Center, great guy. And Deb told me that she and Brian wanted to know if I would consider being the new agent instructor in our Market Center, the Ignite instructor. Now, up until that point, Ignite was taught by the very top agents in our Market Center, like the top 20%. And they were running very big businesses. The classes were inconsistent, and they were looking for one person. And they asked me. Now, Holly, I don't mind telling you that I was not a top agent in my Market Center ever. Not one day.
Yeah.
And I knew enough to help new agents, of course. I closed, a number of transactions. And so when she told me that, I was jumping inside for joy. So that first moment, I thought, this is it. They are putting me in the right seat here. I love this. So Deb and I agreed that we would meet, in a couple of weeks or so by mid-December, so we could plan for the new year. Well, let me tell you what started to happen to me in the days that followed. Anxiety, doubt, and uncertainty just almost swallowed me whole. I almost never felt that much, that type of emotions all at one time, just kind of an avalanche. Wow. And I was considering going right back to Deb and telling her I can't do it. And I was going to tell her that because I was so worried about what other people would think. Regina's not a top agent. Why is she handling this big responsibility? And so here's what I did almost every night for a couple of weeks before, as I was drifting off to sleep, I was saying affirmations in alphabetical order, just to calm myself down. I would say, I am amazing. I am blessed. I am creative. And I would just do one for every letter of the alphabet. And when I met up with Deb again, in about 3 weeks or so time, I said yes. And it became one of the best things that I ever did in my whole KW journey. All of 2018 and most of 2019 until I stepped down, I was the Ignite instructor. And after the first series of classes, because they run for 4 weeks, Deb came up to me and said, almost every single one of your reviews is a 5-star. You had a couple of 4s, but they were all 5. And she goes, I have to tell you, a couple of agents approached me and said, "We love Regina, but she's not a top agent. Are you sure?" And she goes, at our meeting, I told everyone about your reviews and everyone was blown away. And so we absolutely know that we made the right decision. And I'm glad that she told me that. It didn't bother me, it didn't hurt my feelings, but that really set me up, Holly, for everything that's unfolded since, because
Hmm.
it gave me that sense that I could control my thoughts. I could wrap my arms around my emotions, and that it was okay to step into something, even if you weren't completely sure. And so that
Wow.
moment was so big for me. That whole span of time between Thanksgiving and nearly Christmas time, when I really had to take a step back and evaluate my own mindset. And I knew that I could control it. And so that
Wow.
made a big, big impact in my life. And that has helped me multiple times since 2017. I can tell you that.
Yeah, that's incredible. It brings so many thoughts to my mind just about experiences I've had. Now I'm like, oh, maybe I should share this experience. Maybe I should share. I'm gonna stay focused, but it's so it's so powerful when you have that awareness that yes, you are the one who can control it. You are the one who can decide what you're gonna think. And again, it's kind of like we talked about last week very briefly, where oh shoot, what did we talk about? Now I have a mind blank.
This is what you get in real life with
That's all
Holly and
right. It's
Regina.
real life. Whatever it was very much like that.
Yeah. It's just one of these things that we do have control over our thoughts. And maybe, and I heard this at a KW event, you may not have control over the first thought. You
Mhm.
can control the ones that follow. And that
Mhm.
meant so much to me. But people think you have it all together. It's easy to fool people on the outside sometimes. Um, I love sharing that story because it really taught me so much about myself. And that has
Mm.
helped me. And I can think of at least two or three other situations that we'll share another day, that since 2017, that method of doing affirmations and telling myself that I can do something has helped me tremendously.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow. It reminds me back years ago when I was in my first marriage and right in the middle of the personal growth journey and but still fairly new to me. And I remember learning I would do affirmations like every single day because
Mhm.
again, it was the same thing. It's like I don't know if this is working, but I feel like I need to do it. And then sure enough, it's like as you see things play out, you're like, okay, this really does work.
It
Like
does.
if you work it, it really does work. It's not just a nice, a nice message.
It's scientific, actually, because I've been studying a lot about emotional intelligence over the
Mm,
last couple of years. And the more we can tap into that positive affirmations, when we do that repeatedly, it builds the neural pathways in our brain so that we can easily access that again when we need it. And
mm,
brains are very fluid. It's something called neuroplasticity. And we can really construct and shape our brains based on our repeated experiences. So if you say affirmations, that really does change your brain, which changes your thinking. So it's pretty cool.
it is cool. And if
Mhm.
you think about it in the opposite direction too, if you're
Oh,
not being
yes,
intentional and if you're, if you're exposing yourself or you're allowing yourself to be exposed to these negative messages over and over again, whether in your own head or from other people saying to you,
that's right.
like think how that becomes those are your neural pathways. Those are the default thought patterns that you automatically go to. I'm not good enough. I can't do this. That's
It's scary.
impossible. I'm not worthy.
It's scary when you think about it because we've all had negative thoughts, and then we all know people that live in that space. And so it kind of makes me sad in a way because that's
Yeah.
their go-to, like you said, default patterns of thinking. So yeah.
Yeah. And it's like they don't even know any better. They don't even realize it's their default for the vast
That's why
majority of
it's
people.
so that's why it's so sad, because people don't really understand it unless you've spent any time thinking about it. And
Yeah.
so what we say to ourselves, I mean, I'm living proof through that story and others, what
Yeah.
we say to ourselves matters.
Mm, mm.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. That kind of plays into what I was going to share, Regina, because for me, it's not for the story I want to share. It's not just about, it's about what I've said, what I say to myself, and also trusting that inner voice within me. So hearing the saying things to myself, but also hearing that inner voice in me, that part of me speak, and trusting it to say, okay, this is the right next step for me to take. So let me
good.
share real quick. I wanted to
Yeah.
share this story because I haven't really talked a whole lot about this. A little bit I shared on social media, but for really many years, I had quite a significant struggle with anxiety. And the funny thing is, I didn't even realize how significant it was until probably just, about 4 years ago or so.
Wow.
And I think the reason I didn't even realize was because it was just normal. It just was like those feelings were just had become just a very normal part of my life. And so it's just every day it was that, that heavy feeling on my chest of like trying to take a deep breath and just like trying to get through the next thing. It just was normal. And then in my relationship with Paul and learning from him, I started to see how, okay, I started to experience something else. It was like I was able to shift out of survival mode of just trying to struggle moment by moment to get by each day. And as I shifted out of that, it was like the anxiety sort of dissipated for a time. But then,
Wow.
going back to those habitual, neural pathways, that was still the habit of that was the habitual way of thinking. So then something would come up and would trigger it, that just out of the blue seemingly, and all of a sudden I'd be back in it of just that can't breathe, just that feeling of just franticness inside my mind, just that, and like everything around me looks calm and peaceful, but inside it's like everything is just swirling and I can't, I feel like I can't control things. So over the course of a couple of years, I went on a medication, and it was a benzodiazepine medication, which is a fairly heavy duty one for anxiety, very addictive. And I went on it because I was getting to the point where I just like, I need something. And I really didn't, I wasn't educated. I didn't know. And there's nothing, it's not that the medication is bad. It's just, it's right for some people and not for others. And what was never really explained to me was the long-term effects of it, being that the longer you are, the less effective it actually is in helping to control your anxiety. And so you stay on this medication, and the anxiety symptoms start to kind of creep back in and back in and back in, and you start to up the dose and up the dose and up the dose. But the anxiety is still sort of climbing with it just behind that. And you feel like you're like trying to just keep ahead of it. And then at the same time that I think I've heard that, anxiety and depression can go hand in hand a lot of the time. And I reached this point where I just kind of felt like numb. I just felt like not me. Like I felt like I wasn't enjoying life, but I also didn't really feel sad. It was like the emotions in my world had just sort of
That weird in between, not high, not low.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So what I want to say, the first point I wanted to share is that, something can come into your life seemingly by chance. Like for us, we started, as we did the partnership with Dr. Daniel Amen a couple of years ago when launching the Brain Revolution. And so as a result of that, we went to one of his clinics, we did our brain scans, and we sort of just to experience it as, from a client experience, from a user experience, just to have that side of it. And I went into it just as like, oh, this is going to be super interesting, with no expectation of like kind of working on myself or working on my mental health per se. I kind of settled that where I was at with the anxiety was just where it was going to be. It was just, that's how my life was going to be. And I didn't really even know that it could be any different. And so we went through the process, and it was just, just happenstance that we happened to, okay, go to the Amen Clinic, get our brain scans, just because, Paul's doing a business deal with him. And that set me down a path where I started meeting with a psychiatrist. And this was the first time I'd actually met with a psychiatrist before, because they do the follow-up on the brain scan and just kind of debrief you through it. And you can continue following up if you want to. So I did. And after having that initial conversation with the doctor, it's like, okay, maybe there's something here I need to work on. Maybe I'm not just like stuck in this place of just like moment by moment, just trying to like get by. And a couple months later, again, now, so it's like, just because something seems like it's by chance, it's not. It comes into your life
Right.
at a time when you're ready to receive it.
Right.
And that's how it was for me. And then a couple months later, all of a sudden, it was like, the only way I know how to explain it is just being guided by intuition, being guided by that inner voice within me that, okay, you know what, Holly, this medication isn't right for you. You've been on it now for, over 2 years. Something's not right. And that was in January, a couple of years ago. And it was one of my hardest months that I remember, of just being in that place of feeling numb and feeling like anxious and feeling like I don't feel like me. And so at that point, I made the decision that, you know what, I want to see what it looks like to get off of this medication. So I started working with this doctor, and he started walking me through a very gradual tapering process. Because if you go too fast, the rebound anxiety is horrendous. So things were going really, really well. And I was able to drop my dosage fairly aggressively, actually. Now, at the same time, he was giving me other medication just to sort of even things out. And then what happened, and this is, I think, is so important for us to remember, is that whatever sort of journey you're on, wherever you're at, whatever you're working on, there's always going to be ups and downs. It's, it's never just a straight, it's never just a straight, easy journey up the mountain. You're going to hit those valleys, and it's going to be up and down. And so I started this process in January. In early August, I had like a major crash. I just felt like I did a drop in the medication, and it was too much. And I just felt like I was in a tailspin, just like spinning out of control. I felt like I couldn't work. I felt like I couldn't focus. Like, I would have conversations with people. We'd have people over at our house, and I just felt like I could see their mouths moving, and I could hear sounds coming out of their mouths, but it was like I couldn't really, like, it was really hard for me to even like compute what was going on, what the conversation was about. And so I found it very hard just to kind of function. This went on for about a month or so. And something I'm so, so grateful for is just Paul's support in this journey for myself, because even in the ups and the downs, even in the downs, he's been my biggest advocate to say, okay, Holly, and he was sometimes when you're in that place yourself, you need someone else to speak into your life to say, okay, this is not the way things should be. You don't have to, something's not right here. And again, on that note of just being guided by intuition, I just knew that, okay, I had come this far with the help of this particular doctor. And something didn't feel quite right. I just knew I needed to make a change. And so I decided to start seeing another doctor, and I started seeing this other psychiatrist who I'm still seeing regularly, who's been phenomenal. And she was the first doctor who actually explained to me, okay, this medication that you're on, this benzodiazepine medication, is, it's not working because you've been on it for too long. It's something that's kind of intended for you to come in, for it to be just sort of a short-term like solution, but long-term, it just doesn't work. And she was the first person who'd even really explained that to me. So all this time I've been thinking, okay, something's not, like, I know I need to get off this medication, but I couldn't tell you why. But that part of me that just knew something wasn't right, now it made sense. And so now with that, it's like the pieces came together. It's like the connections are being made. It's like, okay, I feel like I can really trust this doctor to be able to kind of guide me the next phase of this journey, however long that is. And so over the course of, that was September through to just this past March, I was finally able to come off that medication completely. So it took me about just over a year to do so. And it was something I could not have done on my own. And I wouldn't recommend anyone try to do it on their own, but it was hard. And just even, it's crazy because there's a physical withdrawal effect that you can experience, but then there's the psychological ones where physically your body might be fine to decrease what it is that you're taking, the dosage, but psychologically I would get this is kind of connected to the anxiety. I get all wrapped up in my own head about well, like, okay, if I drop this, am I going to, and then I started worrying about, okay, the anxiety is going to start getting worse again. It's going to start, and then that just feeds into it and just makes it worse and worse and worse. So it's just this like cycle of really like, talk about having to like rein in my thoughts and think, okay,
Yeah.
I just need to like chill. I just need to like take a deep breath. Sometimes I would literally, some days I was just like, honestly, all I feel like I can do is like lay in my bed and just kind of breathe. It was just
I,
like, some days it was just like that.
I can't
Uh,
even imagine. And your lives are very active. I
yeah,
mean, there's people at the houses, at your house, there's programs going on. You live a high profile life in terms of all of that. Like you're active. You and Paul are very active.
yeah,
I just can't imagine you going through that for months, the ups and the downs, the roller coaster ride of it all. Wow.
yeah. It was very hard, but it's also, there's a part of me, I think in retrospect, it's one of those things, I think you look back on different parts of your life and think, okay, I want, this part of my story to be able to, I want to be able to share it. I want to be able
Yeah.
to be transparent because I know there are a lot of people who struggle with very similar things and who think, this isn't normal. I shouldn't be feeling this way. And it's just, for whatever reason for whatever reason they are. And that you don't have to judge why you're experiencing it. You don't have to say it's bad, but you just are. So now what can you do to start to process it and start to move through it?
It's
So
huge.
it's just, yeah.
You sharing this is so huge, Holly. I worked in mental health for 8 years. I worked on the admin side, but I worked
Wow.
closely with our doctors. I saw all of our patients come in every day. And it's a really hard process for a lot of people, the ups, the downs, the medication working one moment, not the next. So you sharing this, Holly, first of all, I mean, bravo for your
Thank
bravery
you.
to be this transparent, because what you just said will help other people. That's huge.
Thank you.
This
Well,
will
that's
help.
my hope. But so
Yeah.
that's a recent story of mine that I wanted to share. I just love this, Regina. I just love getting to chat with you and to
I
have,
mean,
all of you who are watching
I
joining
think
us.
I think what you shared, Holly, is so huge and so impactful. The takeaways are big for me because I'm
Mm,
someone that's been around you guys somewhat over the last couple of years. And I'm just watching, I'm hearing the story thinking, I'm sure I saw you or talked to you one or two of those moments. And so
mhm,
thank you for sharing with all of us this evening, because that's really going to help. That's truly.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Let me just mention really quick, just before we wrap up, Regina, on Saturday, this Saturday, so in 2 days from now, Paul is leading a really special lesson on Thomas Troward, which if you don't
Can't
know who
wait.
he is one of the
Got my
masters
book.
of personal growth.
Got my
Yes.
book ready.
I got mine too. And and it's going to be on the essay on completeness, which is just mind blowing when you start to jump into it. It's incredible. Talk about seeing yourself in a totally different way.
We're going to have to talk about that and unpack that from our own perspectives a little bit,
We
because
will.
I'm super excited for this.
Yeah, me too. Awesome. Sounds good. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Have a wonderful Thursday evening, and we'll see you all again soon on Real Life with Holly and Regina.
Bye, everybody.